we all have our own ways of receiving that inner guidance. So for some people, they may hear something, or they may have a word, or they might just have a gut knowing, or they might feel something at a heart level. How do you access or feel into trusting that you have that knowledge within you?
Debz is a stressologist. She will stretch your mindset to think bigger than you've ever thought before, with follow-through techniques that are realistic and achievable to blow any fear out of your mind. Moira is a mindset cultivator. She will help you align your personal trinity of self-trust, inner awareness, and self-confidence so that you discover and share your unique gifts and purpose. Together, their goal with these conversations is to share how our inclinations do not always work in our best interest and to provide the knowledge to leverage the gifts that already exist within each one of us. Their desire is to help you learn how to access the habits and behaviors that will lead to positive change and your best quality of life. Welcome to your deliciously motivated mindset.
Always good to have these chats with you, my dear. So I'm looking forward,
Absolutely.
and we always say this, I'm looking forward to our chat today.
Today's a goodie. This is a good one.
It's a good one. But, before we dive into talking about what we'd like to share today, we invite you to just check in with yourself and rate yourself. Where are you on a scale of 0 to 10? And when we talk about 10, we're talking about feeling like you need some help, like you're stuck, you're trapped, you may be anxious, you're wondering, you're ruminating, things like that. And then at 0, you're feeling neutral. I've got this, everything's good in my world. So Deb, where would you put yourself on a scale of 0 to 10?
It's interesting because I think I say that every time. It's interesting. I think I've got a number and then I'm like, yeah, I think I might be BSing myself. So I would have said probably a 3 or 4, but in reality, my mind is going through a lot of things. So I would probably realistically say a 5 if I had to say, but I would like to say a 3 or 4, but in reality, it's a 5. We'll just give it a 5 because that's being truthful.
Good for you for being truthful. And so me too. I was kind of fluctuating between 4 or 5. I'm going to say 4 for myself, just because, and we've shared with our listeners, we always have a chat before we start recording our conversations, and so we start
an hour ago.
We start to visit with stuff that's going on for us, and there's always stuff going on, right? So.
I think it would be great for us to do is actually before we start our big 1 hour chat, before we start our podcast, which usually happens to be an hour before, we rate ourselves then, and then we have our chat. That's probably would be a better idea for us, and that's how honest where we were.
Yeah. That's a good idea. But that's a perfect segue into telling the listeners what we're going to talk about today. So what our topic is to come into trust. We talk a lot about trust, but the idea of trusting that we have the knowledge to follow through or to deal with whatever is, to trust that every situation that we're in, every event, every experience, trust that we have the knowledge. This is a big one for a lot of people. And sometimes, and this is something that I've always said, is that sometimes that's all you can hang on to, is to say, I trust that I have the knowledge. I might not be able to see it right now, right? Just because I can't see that right now doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, and I just have to jump into one of the words that I struggle with is hope. And it's a word, I hope you're okay, or I hope that this gets done, or I hope. And hope is, for me, like I still hear it, and and we possibly even say at the end of our calls, I hope you got something out of today. It's a false illusion, and it's more, I trust you got something out of today.
Absolutely.
And maybe dropping that word hope and shifting it to trust means I trust you got something out today, because it backs me up that I delivered something to you, and not that I hope waiting on you to come back to me and say, yes, I've got something. You know, I trust that you got something because I really believe in what I've said has landed for you and you understand that. So I trust that I have the knowledge to give you something that you can follow through on, instead of, I hope I have the knowledge. Like a hope is still a floundering word that I hope I've given you something.
No, I absolutely love that. And I completely agree with you. There was a mentor of mine many years ago used to say that we need to get rid of hope. We don't need to get rid of hope, but
yeah.
using the word hope leaves the doubt sitting there. Like you just said, I hope you got something out of this, but then there could be an inner dialogue saying maybe you didn't.
Well, as soon as I said that, my whole mind then went, I'm seeking confirmation from you to show that I gave you something.
Yeah.
And that's me just even loosely saying it with no meaning behind it, but just in a sentence, that my mind just instantly went, that whole different level. And even though it was a nil sentence, just I trust I have the knowledge to follow through. Yeah.
So the thing is,
you got something out of today.
Trust you got something out of it. I know you got something out of it. But here's the other part about that's just landing for me, Deb, is that if I do a session for somebody, like maybe I record a reading. Let's say I do a tarot card reading.
Yeah.
And I do it face to face on camera, like we're sitting talking to one another on camera. So you can see me and we're talking. And the amount of times that I will do that, and then the person will go, say, a week or a month later and re-listen to that recording, and they'll hear something completely different. It's right, because so the point being that if I trust that you get what you need, it doesn't mean that you get it right now. It means that I trust you get it when you need it.
Yeah.
So that's taking it into
perfecto timing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that because there's no accidents as to what comes through in our conversations and in my conversations with clients or with readings, it's always, I feel like I'm a conduit. I open up and just share and let it come through. It's not up to me to tell you when you're ready to hear it or not, right?
I know, and I just have to giggle because it's what happens is sometimes you say stuff and then they go, what did you say? And you're like, I don't know.
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention.
I know.
It just came through me.
And they're like, what do you mean you don't know what you just said? And you're like, hang on. And then you've gone out of where you were and you've gone, oh, what did I say? I said Bob. I remember saying Bob. No, I can't remember.
No, and that's why I love recording. That's why I love recording, because I completely then release, because it's not about my head remembering, oh, what was that concept or that idea that I just said.
Yeah, my parents said to me, if you ever go to a doctor or to get your test results or something, always take somebody with you. And I know also when employment, they say, take a support person. You're like, I don't need a support person. But, you hear a doctor say, and I'm just going to use, I'm not going to use that term. A doctor says, oh, you've got this, this, and this. And you go, oh my God, I'm going to die in a day. I've only got 24 hours to live.
Yeah.
And then they go, but you can take a pill and you'll never have the symptom again. Oh, like this is absurd talk, but not absurd talk.
Yeah, no, I follow you.
Yeah. And then you don't hear that next part, that you can take a pill and you'll never hear that again. You then just go into, oh my gosh, I'm going to be dead in 24 hours. Oh my gosh. And so that support person or that recording or whatever is great, because it actually allows you to hear that point when you need to hear it.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. That's actually a perfect example, because in what you just said, in the initial situation where you're feeling that shock, you can't hear anything else. But if you had it recorded, say later that day, say you went for a walk and you got some fresh air, maybe had something to eat, had a nice cup of tea, relaxed, then you might be in a place to hear that last part, right?
Yes.
And so
when you've calmed your farm.
calmed your farm.
Calmed your farm, as my cousin used to say. Calm your farm, Deborah. Calm your farm. Be like, what? Yeah, that's having that being recording or that other voice is when you're ready to hear the message, because not often are we ready to hear what we want to hear. And even when we ask people questions, we're not necessarily ready to hear the answer that they want to say. We expect them to give us an answer that is not necessarily the one that we want to hear.
Absolutely. But do you know, that actually leads me to another part about that trusting that I have the knowledge. So if I trust that I have the knowledge and it's not coming to mind at the moment, if I let go of the struggle of I have to find the answer, oftentimes it will land with more ease, right? That's kind of to surrender into, I know the answer, but it's not coming right now.
Well, that's part of desperation, isn't it? Because the more
the
desperate
holding
you
on
are,
and saying you had to find it. Yeah.
The more desperate you are, the less rewards you get. But when you learn to let go and just go, it's going to come to me in time, or it's going to get to me. Like, we're not desperate and we're not urgent for it, and we just know. So I trust that I have the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
it's coming right back to that trust, because so the other part too is, and this is a funny part about something that I've often said to my coaching clients, is sometimes my job is to call BS on what they're saying. Because the thing is somebody might say, I really want to take on this new habit, or I really want to get rid of this unhealthy habit, right?
Yeah.
But then they procrastinate, or they self-sabotage, or they go and eat the cake, or they go and take the extra bottle of wine or whatever, right?
I'm nodding away going, yep, I've heard this many times. Yes.
Instead of beating ourselves up, we have to own the fact that right now we don't want it. And so when we get into that place, we can say, okay, so for right now, I don't want it, but I will. But it's when we get into that punishing ourselves, oh, look, I'm such a loser because I went and did this, or I self-sabotaged, or I procrastinated. We actually push what we're trying to work towards away further. So that's not just, it's like to say, okay, well, I want to go for a walk every day, but I keep making up excuses as to, well, it's raining today, so I can't go out. No, well, for right now, I don't want that. It's not good or bad. It's just saying, I trust that motivation will show up, right?
Yeah, but even people who admit that stuff, it's hard. I find it a challenge for some people to even admit that what they're saying is actually, well, clearly their actions don't work for it, but what they're saying is clearly BS. But who are they saying it for? Like, I want to go for a walk today. I need to go for a walk. I have to go for a walk today. Oh, it doesn't get done. I'm beating myself up for that. Well, actually, are you walking for your own mental health, or are you walking because someone tells you, you know, you have to do this? You know, it's that whole stuff that you've got ingrained in your mind, whereas actually going for a walk, you know, if you have a heavy client and you require a 5-minute walk to debrief, get up away from your computer and go for a walk, you would definitely find that 5 minute for a walk to get out if that's your pattern. But who's telling you have to go for that walk or whatever? You know, is it because you're comparing yourself to someone else, like your sister who's very different to you and, you know, walks 20 Ks a day or anything? You know, where is that coming from?
That's a perfect example of that, because that is the thing about calling the BS on it, is that sometimes we're saying I have to go for the walk, or I have to eat this way, or I have to take on that health habit, or not. It's because internally we're comparing ourselves, or we're judging ourselves, or we're listening to somebody else's story about how it is to be us in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to sit on that. And that's, to me, that's another big part of the trust, right? Is that we trust that even though these words are coming out my mouth and then I'm blocking or I'm sabotaging it, then I have to look at, so I've created all that, right? We create all those things.
That's, I put my finger and point at you. That's the key. That's the key. I've created all of this.
Yes.
And I don't believe a lot of people see that. You've
Yes.
done this to me. You've done this to me. No,
Mhm.
I've created the situation I am in right now. I'm
Yeah.
sure we've talked about this before.
We
I had a
have,
car
yeah.
crash. That person did that. No, you got in the car. You drove at that time. You
Mhm.
drove at that speed. You happened to be parked there at that time. You, not the other person. The other person was doing they're on their own little journey,
Mhm.
you know, and yes, you were the one who created it, but I didn't want it.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah.
And that one's a really funny one. And I think we have talked about this before. Maybe we need to have another conversation about
We'll
it.
probably
I'm
talk
sure-
off
I'm
camera,
we will.
knowing us. Yeah.
No, that's the thing about taking responsibility, because real trust comes about when we take complete responsibility. The scenario that came to mind when you were just talking about that, about the blaming other people, I was in a seminar. It was a motivational seminar, and there were probably about 150 people there. And so in day 2, we were all told we have to show up on time, specific time. I think it was like 8:30 in the morning. Have to be there. Do not show up late. And this was part of we came to figure out or find out later, it was a teaching moment. So
Okay.
most of us were all there at 8:30. There was a couple of stragglers, 5-10 minutes late. And the instructor didn't do anything about them. But then there was the one girl who came in half an hour late. And he immediately called her up to the front and he said, "You disobeyed what I actually requested. It's your fault. Like, why are you disrupting my class?" And did something. And her thing was, it wasn't her fault. She was caught in traffic. There was a car crash. There was this. And she had this huge list. And he's standing there with his arms crossed, and he's going,
He's probably
still your
gone,
fault.
heard this before. Yeah.
But no, it's still your fault. So she says, "There's traffic." She said, "Traffic wasn't my fault." He said, "No, but you left home too late." Right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is that when we're being accountable, being responsible, and trusting that we will get there at the right time, we take the detours or take the extra 10 minutes, leave the house extra 10 minutes early.
A quick wee message before we get back to this episode. You can get access to a special gift Moira and Debz have put together for you. Go to deliciously-motivated-mindset.com/gift. When you sign up, you'll receive instant access to an inner peace kit and the 30 Days of Wisdom program, both of which is intended to help you feel deliciously motivated right away. Go to deliciously-motivated-mindset.com/gift.
Just you were telling me about that, and I went to an event, and I won't name the event, but it was painful, financially painful.
Okay.
And when I say it was financially painful, anything that you did that was outside the rules cost you $50, US dollars. Boom. $50 US, $50 US. So we were in teams of 6, and we had to be there at a certain time to do our exercise, and we went away and had breakfast, and then we came back to the day. Now, if any member of your team was not there, everybody got fined $50 instantly. Like, you had to pull out your $50 note or whatever straight away. So we then went, well, and we were the first team. The guy was late, and everyone went, "Okay, we're going to have to pay $50." And I went, "No, I'm not paying $50 for him. He has to pay my $50. And of course it caused I was like, "I'm not paying $50 because you slept in. Like, no way." And so then we put a plan in place that whoever's, but then then people said to me later that day, "You were mean making him pay," because there were 6 of us in a team and he had to pay that. And I'm like, "I'm not paying $50 for his stuff up."
Yeah.
Then I started, my ego or whatever started to go, okay, this is not how a team works. So we then made sure that we all sent text messages, and we all got up and we all made sure everybody was in line that morning. Like, are you awake? Do you need anything brought to your room before you get down? Do you have, so there was that, although that flipping phone every morning was going off crazy, but it made us collaborate
to
as a
one
team.
Another. Yeah.
Absolutely. So to know that I'm on my journey and you're on yours, but we're actually part of a team here. And so it was a great way to actually bring our team together. And I mean, when I fork out money, I just go, oh, God, and $50 was pain. $50, I was like, pain. And I was actually surprised I didn't say $50 per minute, but to have to pay for someone else in my team because of their lateness. I was like, no, that's not my doing. That's his doing. But then realized, actually, we all signed up as a team. We all said we're going to do this. We just believed that he was going to do it. And then we just got ourselves into an order of, okay, are we all online? Do you have your exercise gear? Because you had to bring certain things down. Make sure, when you've gone to bed tonight, we'd all send photos of all our stuff laid out. We've all got this in order. It really bonded us as a team. It was an interesting course because then 4 days into it, they, when we got ourselves in flow and we understood our team, it was a 10-day course. Then they swapped all the teams over again and we had to learn to retrain everyone else's personalities all over again. Oh my God, that was a challenge. But that's it. I trust that I had trust that the other person was going to do their job.
Yeah.
But yeah, $50 was, there was a lot of money forked out. And of course, I'm an arguer. Well, actually, no, I'm a questioner. So every time you asked a question, it cost you $50. It got to that point.
That's funny.
So yeah, it was definitely one to make you think, is that question valid? And all the money at the end of it went to a charity, which was great. But yeah, it was definitely one to make me question. But that's a great one. I trust that I have the knowledge to follow through, so you don't need to ask that question for $50.
Exactly. and so then it goes back to when we have trust. Trust is an invisible force, right? So it's not that if I trust that this is going to happen, or I trust that I've said I will be there for such and such, or this person's going to meet me there, that I don't have to then ask a million questions or control them. Just do your part and know that it's going to happen. It's a big thing about letting go, right? So it's like set the intention, make the request, and let go.
Yeah.
Because it's going to evolve.
Yeah. And I think with the trust, I have the knowledge to follow through. I think the trust, I have the knowledge. We have a wealth of knowledge sitting in us. And we quite often minimize our own skill. I believe we minimize, and I do it, our own skill set to somebody else and listen to them over our own intuition, our own inside knowledge, our own learnings and teachings that we've done. And we've put that other person on a pedestal to listen and absorb whatever they're saying, when really we have a lot of answers within us. And yes, clearly you can still ask questions, quality questions. I'm not saying don't, because quality questions get you through, but we have a lot of that knowledge already within us to follow through. In a belief, but that's a big one.
But that's the key piece about checking back in, because to your point, asking questions because we can all share wisdom, we can ask a person's opinion, but we have to have and create some sense of self-respect that if you tell me something that just really doesn't sit right for me, then I'm not going to take that on because it doesn't sit right for me, because that's like the wisdom within me saying there's a different belief or there's a different process. Like I'm thinking back to what we were talking about a moment ago about the going for a walk. Going for a walk every day is a good thing. But not everybody wants to do that. Maybe some people like to go and do a Pilates class or do a kickboxing class or go for a run. So the thing is it's not to say, I have to do it this way. I have to go for a walk because Deb said so, because Moira said so. It's like, no, you know that you need to exercise your physical body, what feels right and best to you. And that to me is about the trusting that you have the knowledge within, because we find those things by trying them out. So try for a week, going running every day. That doesn't feel good. I know, like for me, I can't. My body says my knees are not going to support me for that. But I love walking. Aren't either. No. I love walking, right? So,
but I know when I used to walk, I'd get bored, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm bored." But now I love walking. Right. But I'm of course having a dog. But I know Tony Robbins references it, changing your state. And I remember going, what do you mean change your state? But there's so many different ways to change your state. But that's so simple, because I'm not telling you to go for a walk. I'm telling you to change your state. Just change whatever you're doing. If you have to get up and stretch after every call you have, or after every time you've done something. We had a thing in our office that if you were doing one task for more than 15 minutes, you had to sit on the floor, because I have a dog, and play with the dog.
That's awesome.
Because Ben, the dog, loved it. Because it changed your state. It just meant, okay, I've had enough of this. 15 minutes on the computer and I just can't work this damn thing out and I'm about ready to blow. Okay, I'll just play with Ben for 30 seconds or a minute. And that changes your state, allows you to get out for a walk. In whatever it is, can just change that mentality that you can flip your switch.
Yeah. And right there, that's a beautiful part, what you just said, because in that change, that flip your switch, that's when epiphanies land. That's when realizations happen. That's when you go, oh, I know what to do. There's the decision. There's the answer. Yeah.
The glitter shines. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you see, we seem to have this propensity to hustle, to push, to keep forcing. Whereas if we get into that sense of, no, this is about collaboration, co-creation, having a dance. You do your bit and then you can't. It's about surrender and release, right? So set an intention and release the pieces that you can't do anything about, and trust that the wisdom, the inner knowing, your guidance, it's always there for you. But you can't get it if you're running at something at 110 miles
at
an hour.
Full speed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no way you're going to get it. And if you get it, you're going to miss the key factors of it. Yep. You're only going to get a small percentage of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to get the fullness of it, it's to take it at that right pace. And the other part too, you and I have talked a lot about gratitude and appreciation. That to me is another part that's really important, is that to acknowledge and have gratitude for when that wisdom or that epiphany lands for you, because that is, to me, is like strengthening that connection.
Yeah.
So the more you go, wow, thank you, or I appreciate that wisdom landed, or I appreciate my level of trust that everything's okay, all is well. And then you get more, it's like that it opens the conduit to receiving that guidance.
Yeah, I think that's exact, because I do believe that the more grateful you are, the more opportunities come your way. And if someone gives you $1 or buys you a coffee or anything like that, you're like, you can be like, oh, thanks. And then the other things you can be, oh my gosh, how amazing that person gave that to me. Wow. Okay, so I just saved myself $5 on a coffee, or $2, or whatever a coffee is. I'm going to put that into my savings, or I'm going to pay that forward. Yeah. It's up to you what you do with that. But the more grateful you are, the more opportunities are going to come your way. And it is that pay it forward, in a way.
Absolutely. But that's being grateful for things that come from outside of you and land. But I think it's also really important to be grateful for the stuff that arises from within you.
Absolutely. And whatever we have, it's just that whole trust of what we have within us, that is our knowledge to follow through. Yeah.
And so like I say, the more, and so even just sitting visiting this idea, I just get such a lovely feeling of balance and fluidity flowing, right? That just begets more trust, more connection, more.
And you can feel that in your, and you can feel that in your body. Like, I'd love to hear from the listeners that, do you feel that when you know you're enough? And I'm not talking about when you're in flow and things are, when things are working and you're just like, yes, and you're going at 20 miles an hour and, time just disappears because you're doing a million things at once. But when you feel yourself going, and it's not floating, but it's, you can feel things are on path, and that things are working out in alignment with where you would love to go or where you'd love to be. And things are, the obstacles are not obstacles anymore. It's just someone pushing you through, that you're allowing yourself to go through and follow through.
Absolutely. So I think the state, I would describe what you just said as being in flow, not necessarily being floaty, but you're in flow, right?
And yeah, floaty, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it
But
can
yeah,
be floaty
absolutely,
too,
in
but
flow. Do. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, when you're in flow, I can feel it, and
yeah,
I know when I'm in flow. And yeah, you know, when you know. But I'd love to hear, from people a little bit about that.
absolutely. And this is something that we can go into in another discussion, is we all have our own ways of receiving that inner guidance. So for some people, they may hear something, or they may have a word, or they might just have a gut knowing, or they might feel something at a heart level. So it's like all the different ways. How do you access your inner knowing? I'm saying this to our listeners. How do you access or feel into trusting that you have that knowledge within you?
Yeah.
And then once you know that part, then you can start exercising it and acknowledging and having appreciation for your own connection to that.
Yeah. So what key factors would you say, Moira, of how do you, like, I know, when I know, my mind goes, I know, and there's no distraction, nothing will come in and tell me you can't do it this way because I know, and people call that stubborn, mum. But when I know, that's it, it's done. You can't discuss with me or anything. So how do you how do you know when you know? How do you know when you know? What key factors do you know when you have that knowledge?
For myself, so my inner authority is actually my intuition. So okay. It's just to me, it lands as an irrefutable ism, if you like. And it's really funny because and this happens between me and my husband, is that I may say, well, this is the way it is. This is the way this is going to work. And he'll say, well, how on earth do you know that? So, I don't know. It just is. And then, like, show me, prove it to me. And I'm like, no, just go and ask Google. Because to me, when I have that inner knowing, I can't, similar to, we were talking earlier about the idea of recording what we were saying to a client in a session, simply because when we're open to the flow, being in that flow, the insights, the knowledge so this is my piece of trust. I trust it's there, but I don't always consciously engage with it. It flows through me. So
you just know.
Yeah.
And it's a no in capitals. I know. That's
it. Exactly. And so that's it becomes kind of a joke between my husband and I, because he wants the science-based, proof. And I'm like, well, I just don't roll that way. Like, but you go get it if that's what you need. I'm good with that.
That's so funny you say that, because that's me. So we rearranged the office the other day, and I said to my partner, I'd like to do this, this, and this. And my partner's like, well, that's not going to work. I'm like, of course it will. I can see it. And she was like, but how's that going to work? And I'm like, well, this is it. Like, and I felt, and so I realized she likes to have all the explanations. Like, I'd like to know this, and I'd like to know this, and what's the distance from here? And I'm just like, I can see it. It's going to work. Like, why are you even questioning me? Let's just get this done. And she's like, we need to measure this out. I'm like, no. And as it was, it didn't actually work. So that became very funny for me, because I didn't judge the bookshelf where it was. I forgot about the bookshelf. But I dropped the ball in explaining, because I just go, and well, for her, I would just go, well, this is how it's happening. Let's just get this done this way.
Right.
Done. And it's going to work. And she's like, but we need, and I'm like, no. So if I explain, which to me just takes so much time to have to, I just don't want to do that. Oh, and if we do it this way, and this is why this would do this, and da-da-da-da. And I noticed last night we did something, and I started explaining, and she just looked at me, she said, are you just filling up words? I said, I'm trying to explain to help you. And she goes, I'll just do it your way. I'll just do it your way. Like, let it go, Deborah. And I was like, okay, well, I tried to try to do it your way. Try to do it your way to help you. But I just knew. So I had the knowledge to follow through. This is what I was doing. Mm-hmm. But it was the explanation to the other personality who didn't understand my way of thinking. Right. We were on completely two different trains going ahead to get an end result that we both wanted the same end result, and could see things happening, but her end result was different to mine. But it was
Right.
definitely a
And you have different
explanation.
ways of computing it. But here's the
Yeah.
piece that I feel into what you're just describing, and this is how I work, because I'm the person like you. I can see it work out. It's this, like don't get your tape measure out. What the hell? Although
Yeah, I'm
sometimes
like, what?
sometimes I will bring a tape measure out, but you know.
Oh yeah,
But
not that they can see.
Here's the piece about about when, if I say I know it's going to work out, if it doesn't, like you just said, if it doesn't, because the bookshelf was there or because of some unknown piece right in that moment, here's the big piece about that. I trust I have the knowledge to deal with it. If it didn't work out, I would know immediately what to do. So therefore, that just takes it to another level as to why I'm not going to explain. My thing is that by the trust is I can say, this is going to work out this way. And then I let go and start doing it. If there's something else, you know, a spanner gets thrown in the works, as I like to say, I know I can recognize it and go, okay, I'm in flow. So now this is how it goes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you got your office laid out in the best way. Yeah,
I did. I did. And you're right. And I think that also the other thing is you know, and she mentioned to me, she said, oh, well, you were quick to admit wrong. And I went, oh, no, I'm not admitting wrong. I'm not admitting wrong here. I'm just admitting that things needed a little bit of tweaking. That's all. And we got here in the end. And so it was quite funny to have that dynamic of that conversation to just, when you've got someone else on your trainers, to actually explain it, because I trust I have the knowledge to follow through, and my partner had the knowledge to follow through in her mind, but the different train, but that communication between. But yes, we both got there in the end, and there was no arguments, but it's having that communication and trusting, but without the, and I'm going to use the word ego, but I don't know if it's the word ego, but without the cockiness, without the cockiness of I know more than you and this is how we're doing it. It's actually, oh, I would like to do it this way. Let's just get this done. And I think that's that respect of who you are, but also who they are as well.
I completely agree. And you know what comes to mind as you were saying that is that the person who says you're right, you're wrong, and I'm right, is not realizing that there are actually multiple truths.
Yeah.
And so that's how come, to your point, you weren't wrong. It was just you had a different truth. That's it.
Yeah.
And so therefore you're going to adapt and adopt something different to come to the conclusion. It's just going to be different. This is something, and we can have more of a chat about the feminine creation. We talked about that once before, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was just going to say that's something you're wrong, I'm right, because I'm finding in my business, you know, as a stressologist coaching people, as there's people who store things up. You were wrong 3 times last week, and I was only wrong once. You know, that whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, and so many people are storing that 3 months. Like they say, women have elephant memories. You know what, men have elephant memories as well, but they let a lot of shite go because they've got other things they want to store in their mind. If you want to store how many times they've burnt the toast or whatever, then store it. But seriously, we've all burnt the toast.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to store how many. Like, that would be a great one to talk about, because that's what people hold, that score factor, you know. And I know mum and dad, mum, I'll just, poor mum, if she's listening, you'll love this, mum. Not really. Mum always, when she has her towel, and mum and dad have the towel on the towel rack, towel, you know, bath towel, mum's is always on the right. And so dad knows to take hers on the left, and because they have the same colour towel. And mum, I said to mum, why is yours always on the right? And dad goes, oh, because she's always right. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's really harsh. And then I remember watching mum make the coffees or the teas or something, and hers was on the right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you really believe? And I remember saying this thing to mum, and I said to mum, are you always right? She's like, yes, but she's not. And she knows that, but it's a banter that's a great banter between mum and dad now. Now it's a healthy banter. It clearly, obviously, got to a point of something. But I've started noticing when I make my tea and coffee for anyone in the house or anything like that, mine's always on the right. And I'm like, oh my God, that's because I'm always right. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's just easier to remember that from mum and dad being on the right.
Yeah.
But it is that stored memory from, you know, I grew up with that, you know, and mum would say, oh, I was wrong in that or something. And dad would go, oh, quick, get that in writing. Quick, did you hear that, kids? You know, and it's that. And I think it's an old-fashioned, I don't know if it's an old-fashioned thing, but it's actually really ingrained in us from the right or wrong. So I guess mum's trust that she has the knowledge to follow through, and dad's trust that he has the knowledge to follow through, and there's your trust different to your trust.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this has been a good conversation. We kind of went all over about trust and wisdom and knowledge. So
we do.
Like we always do. This is how we roll. So just to check back in on that idea of a scale of 0 to 10, remember that 0 is neutral, everything's good, and 10 is like I got a lot of charge to still work through. Where would you rate yourself now that we've talked about all things knowledge and trust?
For me personally, I would definitely say a 2, maybe a 3. Definitely moved up or down, whatever, towards the 0, towards
Come
the
down to neutral.
Down to the neutral. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say 2.
Yeah,
2.
I would
put
2
myself
at
right.
2. 2. I would say 2 for myself also. That was I love talking about tapping into inner wisdom because I firmly believe we all have all of the answers that we need and that we're looking for. So I'm very passionate about, this is the work I do with my clients, and all the services that I do is about waking that up and helping people, you know, open that conduit to tapping into that. It's there.
Absolutely. It was when they're ready. When they're ready to hear that next part of the message.
And that's what we trust, that you will hear the message when you're ready.
Yes, we do.
All right, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening, and we hope that you're in our Facebook group, and we'd love to hear your comments and requests or questions. We're here to provide as much support as we possibly can for you.
Fabulous. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Thank you, Moira, for stretching my mind again. And I'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Thanks, Deb. Bye-bye.
Thanks.